Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Channel World Seed. This session will be focusing on the most closely watched developments in European cereals, hybrid wheat. Now, growers are under increasing pressure to increase productivity while facing rising input costs, tighter regulations, evolving disease pressure, and more volatile climatic conditions. Yet at the same time, wheat yields across much of Europe have largely plateaued, creating growing pressure on the sector to find new ways to improve resilience and performance. Today, we're going to be learning about a new hybrid wheat variety, Xterra, and exploring what this could mean for growers across Europe. I'm delighted to be joined by Rob Hiles. He's Head of Marketing and Portfolio for Seeds, Field Crops, Europe at Syngenta. Rob, you have spent much of your career working in seeds and cereals. Can you start by giving us a bit of a brief background to what you do and what brings you to the World Seed Congress this year?
Great. We'll start with an easy question, so that's great news. So I come from a farming background, grew up on a family farm in the UK in Lincolnshire, so it was an arable farm with cereals, sugar beet, potatoes, oilseed rape. So I guess that triggered my passion for agriculture and hence being in the industry. As you say, I've spent most of the time in the cereal seeds business. I spent about 5 years in our crop protection side of the business, looking after Northern Europe. And what brings me here? Well, first thing is to talk to you. So that's the highlight for me of the day so far. And but also broader than that, it's the chance to connect with the industry players here, hear about some of the messages, some of the challenges, some of the opportunities that we have as an industry, connecting with some old friends, making new friends. So it's a great place to do that. It's my first time here as well, actually, so really excited.
Well, we're delighted to have you here in Lisbon. Now, as I was opening earlier, Rob, I talked about those European wheat fields, how they have yields, not fields, have plateaued since the mid-1990s. What does that mean in practice for growers, and why has this remained such a difficult challenge to solve?
Yeah, so look, I mean, ultimately, it means the return on investment for the grower is under pressure. So the profitability on every hectare that the grower has is challenged. And I think there's many reasons for that, and so maybe I'll just touch on a few. I mean, if you think about and look at the climate volatility that we're seeing at this time, I mean, we had flash floods in Spain in 2024. If we look into Eastern Europe, into Romania and Hungary, we're seeing extreme heat in the springtime, to the point where growers are having to switch cropping. So switch out of spring cropping of corn and sunflowers, and move back into oilseed rape and winter cereals because of that climatic push. So real pressure from climate. I think another key one for me is on the regulatory environment that we're operating in Europe in particular. So I think if we look back since 2019, we've probably lost more than 80 active ingredients. So that's the toolbox of the grower is diminishing. It's under pressure. I think one positive of Brexit as a Brit, I can talk about that, is we've actually had 4 new active ingredients in the UK. I think that is probably one of the only benefits of Brexit
Not that we'll get into Brexit.
Seen. Exactly. But even where you live, I think you've had 11 new active ingredients in Australia. So you can see the pressure the European farmer is under in terms of that toolbox available to him. And then you have the short-term impacts. So you look at the Middle East war at the moment, and the impact that's had on fertilizer prices, where we've seen increases of 30, 40, 50% in fertilizer. We've seen fuel costs increase significantly. So all these are having an impact on the grower. And to top it all off, you look at where commodity prices are. They're not high. So it's like a boiling mixture of stuff that's just challenging the European farmer, and the plateauing yield is a key part of that.
Quite a backdrop that you're describing, one a lot of us are very familiar with. So what is Xterra hybrid wheat, and why are you launching it now?
So Xterra is Syngenta's hybrid wheat brand. It's not only covers just the genetics, but it includes digital agronomy, includes the agronomy in there, and it's a complete package. And why are we launching it now? I mean, this has been a long journey. So we've been working on hybrid wheat for about 15 years now, and in fact, one of the members of my current team was one that went to Kansas in the US, 15 years ago to evaluate, was it feasible? You know, could we actually hybridize the wheat crop? Because if you look at it compared to the other crops, it deserves to be hybridized fully. It's 220 million hectares of wheat in the world, much bigger than corn, rice, soybean. And you look where corn was hybridized in the 20s, many vegetable crops and oilseed rape crops in the 60s and the 70s. The only real development there was hybrid barley from ourselves in early 2000s. So it's there to have technology thrown at it to really make a difference. And I'm super proud of all the teams that have played a role in that 15-year journey to get us to where we are now. Why are we launching it after 15 years? Well, we have products that we think are commercially viable. And when I say commercially viable, I mean products that will have a value proposition that will resonate with the grower.
Okay.
If the grower doesn't see value in it, they will not adopt the technology. And we've had 2 recent registrations that we believe will ensure that the grower has success from day one with this technology.
And of course, 15 years in development, as you've painted a bit of a picture behind that, but it's taken a long time to reach this point commercially. Hybrid wheat isn't a new concept. We've had this conversation before. But what is about Xterra that has brought us to that point that we can have this conversation?
Yeah, so look, I think there's a number of points here. I mean, the technology that we now have available in terms of tools available to develop hybrid wheat has significantly changed versus 15 years ago. And even in the 80s, when people were trying to hybridize wheat without too much success, it's certainly success at, on a large scale and a large platform around the world. The ability now, we're tracking individual genes and understanding the role that they play in the plant has a huge positive impact to be able to bring to the marketplace now. I think also, if you think about the complexity of wheat, you know, in those, it's super complicated. You know, we kind of think we're complicated in the human genome, but wheat is far more complex in the genome, and that makes it difficult. And I think one of the other factors that's maybe hindered us in the past is you've in essence got to create a plant that's naturally self-pollinating to become cross-pollinating, to create that hybrid. And with the tools and technologies that we have available now, we're able to track the restoration gene, which switches back on the pollen production in the F1 hybrid. So I think that was one of the biggest discoveries that enables us to bring this technology to the marketplace.
And hybrid vigor, what does that mean for a wheat grower standing out in their field? What do they see and experience differently? Okay, so maybe we can get the slide, because I've got a couple of slides which I think help to show that. Here we go. So something we prepared earlier.
Yeah, I mean, normally we always, and in your question you asked about what do we see? Well, I'm actually starting with something you don't see. Yeah. So I'm going to start below the ground, and this is one of the key parts of hybrid vigor. And I think here you're seeing the extremes here. So this is it's a laboratory study looking at soil compaction. So on one side you've got zero compaction, super light soil, and you compare a conventional wheat variety with a hybrid Xterra variety, and you gradually move across to the far side of the screen where you're looking at soil compaction of 300 psi. Now, you could say not many situations will be like 300 psi in terms of compaction, but you can see the benefit of the hybrid in there. So below the ground, you're seeing that hybrid vigor, you're seeing that heterosis come into action. And this is something you don't normally see. So what's happening here, the roots are scavenging for the nutrients, they're able to outcompete weeds for those nutrients, and it's that hybrid vigor and heterosis coming into play. Now, what you see what you normally see is on the next slide, if this works. There we go. No, next, backward. What you normally see above the ground is great looking crops, and so on the left you can see the rooting in a typical plant that we've pulled out of the ground, and then on the 2 pictures in the middle and the right you see great looking crops and super clean. We had a really difficult year for those of you in France and connected with France in 2024 24 was a super high disease pressure year, and it was a really good test for a lot of breeding programs to screen out material that maybe wasn't up to the job, but you can see some fantastic looking products. So this is what you see above the ground and below the ground in terms of the hybrid vigor. And then my final slide is to, we'll talk about the one on the left here, just from hybrid barley. So this isn't on the Xterra, but what you can see on the left of the picture on the left, some of you will recognize that as a wheat crop, but also you'll see a significant amount of weed pressure from blackgrass in there. And those of you that drive around the UK will absolutely recognize that. But this weed is prevalent in France, coming into Germany, into Poland. What you see and what we've seen is the hybrid vigor of the hybrid barley being able to outcompete the blackgrass and the grass weeds to a stronger effect than say the traditional wheat crop, and that's coming from the rooting, which I talked around. It's also coming from the ability of the plant to tiller, stronger tillers, the ability of the plant to have bigger canopy, flag leaves to intercept the light, but also stop that light reaching the grass weeds. And in that particular situation on farm, we're seeing 366% less seed from the blackgrass going into the following crop because it's being outcompeted by the hybrid. And for me, that is hybrid vigor in action. Yeah. And we'll talk around the one on the right when we talk about sustainability a bit later. And
just our attention on barley for a second. How has this experience really shaped the development of the Xterra wheat?
Yeah, so it's a big plus for us, certainly as Syngenta, and we've been commercialising hybrid barley for more than 20 years. And whilst the barley crop and the wheat crop are clearly different, there are many aspects which are common, and the hybrid system that we're using is common between the two, and that has a big benefit. The production system, in terms of how we're going to produce the seed for growers, we use a blend production system, so exactly the same as we use in barley, we'll use in wheat. We have to be mindful of pollen and how pollen moves. It behaves slightly different in wheat than barley, but there's a lot of really good learnings coming from our hybrid barley experience.
And we know growers across Europe are under pressure to increase yields, but that's only part of the story, of course. What does the evidence tell us about how Xterra can genuinely be more holistic in what it's doing?
Yeah, so yield's important, clearly, but research that we do with talking to growers, market research survey, one of the top things that comes back is yield stability. So going back to some of the points I was making around climate volatility and whether that's water or heat stress, they need something that is stable, performs year on year, and that will be an absolute key benefit coming from hybrid wheat going forward.
And I guess right from the opening ceremony this morning, we were hearing farmers are being asked to produce more, but reducing inputs at the same time and reducing that environmental impact. So how does it contribute to those conversations and navigate those tensions?
Yeah, so it's a tough world that you're painting there. You know, I set the scene in terms of the challenge that the grower has from the external, and then they're being asked to do even more. So we see a great barley example, and let me just use the barley example on that third slide, if we can just get that one back again. There you go. Here we go. So on the right-hand side is a really good example of using less insecticide. Okay. So you can see here an aphid. So this is a barley yellow dwarf virus. You can see two crops. Hopefully you can recognize the healthy crop on the left and the crop on the right, which has been infected by barley yellow dwarf virus. In extreme situations, farmers will be losing 30 to 50% yield. In a really extreme, where you can see the picture in the bottom right, where you can see a sprayer missed a patch of the crop, you can see near 100% destruction of the crop. The piece, the hybrid barley on the left has BYDV resistance. So it's a gene that's been bred into the product, and that absolutely allows farmers to reduce or even eliminate the use of insecticides. So coming to your question around sustainability, doing more with far less, really good example in hybrid barley where it's in action, less insecticides are being applied to the crop. For Xterra, we're at the early stages. We're launching the first couple of products, and we've been working a lot in the agronomy side of things to try and get the basics right. There's an expectation when you bring a new technology to the marketplace that it needs the yield, it needs the yield stability, it needs the agronomics, it needs the quality. So the Xterra brand is focused on bread making quality for the French market, the German market, and the UK market. So all those aspects together. Further down the line, we would anticipate things like BYDV resistance being brought into Xterra and other insecticide and other traits that we believe will be relevant in 10 years' time when the regulatory landscape continues to evolve and the toolbox changes further still.
Can we delve a little bit into that there? You've obviously talked about the genetics themselves. You mentioned there about some of the agronomic advice. What is some of the wider support that's sitting around that's available, whether that's the technical support, the digital support that's being made available to those with the new technology?
Yeah, so maybe I'll just pick a couple of examples. So Cropwise Seed Selector, so it's a digital-based tool that Syngenta has, which gives personalized advice to growers based on real data, local data to the farm, or real agronomy data relating to the hybrids. And so growers can utilize that to help them select the right product for their particular soil types or location, rainfall, etc. And then we also, another one maybe as an example, is Cropwise Protector. So looking at how you protect the crop. So when you're making your decisions around fungicide applications, the ability to assess the amount of septoria, for example, that is in, and whether you need to apply any particular chemistry to maximize the potential of the Xterra hybrid. So there'd be just a couple of examples that we would see wrapped around the seed of Xterra.
I've got to ask a thorny question, Rob. So some growers, they're going to question whether systems like these are going to risk locking them into those proprietary technologies owned by large multinationals like Syngenta. How do you respond to concerns like that?
Yeah, so we started with the easy question of my name and my background, and now we're going to. I mean, it's a good question, and it's something that I think many growers would be asking, and certainly the NGOs have asked, throughout. And what I would say to that is farmers will still have choice. So I mean, even if I look on a quite a long sort of future time frame, I can see significant choice, whether that's coming from hybrid wheat, Xterra ourselves, whether that's farm safe seed, if the grower chooses to grow farm safe seed, or certified seed. So there will be choice for many years to come. I think the other positive for me is the number of competitors of ours that are also investing in hybrid wheat, whether that's a Bayer, a BASF, a KWS, a Limogran, an RAGT. I think that's good for the farmer. It creates competition, but ultimately it's good for the farmer. It's good for the development of the technology because it's a lot of R&D dollars going into that challenge of plateauing cereal yields.
Yeah, of course.
So if we can plow the dollar in the right area as an industry, we should be able to help and reverse that plateauing or even declining in some areas yield. So that's how I would answer the question. Whether it's an acceptable answer to all, I don't know, but that would be my view.
And you've obviously talked about your involvement with growers there. How are you incorporating feedback into the development of this wheat variety? Has that been a really important part, is actually evolving and changing as you get that feedback along the way?
Yeah, super important. I mean, super important for two reasons. One is for the future. What are growers experiencing? What are their kind of views on where their challenges will be in the future, and then what can we do about it to make our products better for them. On Xterra in particular, we've created what we would call a co-development network, where we've worked with hundreds of growers across France, where they've been growing a hectare or half a hectare of of Xterra and just getting familiar with it. It's just how we started. No protocols from us other than seed rate reduction.
Okay.
So all the agronomy advice would say we've got to reduce the seed rates between 15 and 25%. But just play with it. See what you observe versus your other crops on your farm. And then gradually we brought in a few more protocols. So you asked the question around sustainability, being asked to produce more for less.
Yeah.
Nitrogen is clearly a hot topic. It's a hot topic now because of the price of nitrogen. But we've started to work with growers on nitrogen reduction. Can you still get the protein quantity? Can you get the protein quality by reducing nitrogen? So the NVZ areas, the nitrate vulnerable zones across Europe would be able to continue with this technology. We've also been looking at regen ag practices as well with this. So we have some interesting work going on in the UK, in France, and just outside Brussels, looking at the traditional, maybe the word traditional is the wrong word, the old plough and press way of farming versus more minimum tillage type systems. And we're starting to see some really interesting results coming through. Putting an N sensor, so nitrogen sensor over those to look where we can really start reducing the nitrogen applications to the crops as well. So all contributing to some of that sustainability piece as well.
Amazing. So looking ahead, what's the next steps for Xterra? Where can we find out more what's happening next?
Yeah, so immediate next steps is I need to sell some seed this autumn. So France will be our first country to have commercial Xterra seed available. So if there's any growers here or online watching, then speak to your local cooperative or speak to your local Syngenta sales team member. For UK growers, we would looking to launch products next year. So
France first,
then France
UK.
26, UK 27, and for UK growers this year, we'll envisage doing some of that co-development work. So we'll be looking for growers to work with us in terms of developing the agronomy programs and testing the material. So again, speak to your local distributor or your local Syngenta sales representative. And then 2029 is Germany, Southeast Europe, Romania, Hungary. We have in the plans for around 2030. And then some of the other countries around France, whether that's Benelux or around Germany into Denmark and the Nordic countries, would also be looking to launch over the next 5 years, let's call it. So pretty exciting times, I think, for growers, and exciting for us to be bringing this technology to the market.
I guess for everyone watching as well, why are you so excited about this? Why should we be getting behind this and excited about what this means?
Well, I think there is a personal excitement because I've been part of the journey for a long time, as a lot of the teams within Syngenta have been part of that journey. So, and you don't get many chances in your career to bring something that could be completely game-changing to growers. And we know the pain that growers are experiencing in terms of that yield plateau, the external pressures that they are under. And I genuinely believe, and I believe it's my competitors also believe, because they're investing in the technology as well, this is a game-changing technology. And whilst I'm not going to sit here and claim the first products absolutely address all the problems immediately, but what I can see coming behind the front runners is super positive, whether that's yield increasing significantly, or whether that's disease profiles improving, whether that's ensuring that the bread making quality is meeting the needs of the end users. It's super exciting to get this in the hands of growers, and then let's learn together how we move forward with it. And
as my position as moderator, I'm allowed to ask different questions. I guess, what's been bubbling up all day across the conference has been the inclusion of young people and their voices. And as Rob's saying, that this is going to be game changing, and it's going to be the next generation that is going to experience that real change and that real breakthrough. And just thinking, you've all heard from some of the Engine delegates over at the Future Generation Corner. How important are those young people to Syngenta and some of the work that you're doing, and how can you engage with them as part of this game changing experience moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's absolutely critical, and I was chatting to a friend of mine who works for Capgemini, and we were talking about AI, and he described my age group as, from an AI perspective, as a Luddite, and you need the younger generation to be really helping, and I think that's one of the areas, bringing in new ideas and new concepts, and from a Syngenta perspective, it's super important. If I look even on Xterra, if I look in our breeding teams, our agronomy teams, we have such a great range of real good experience, but then youth bringing in new ideas. And one of the other schemes we run in the Syngenta group is something called the Seeds Accelerator Group. So identifying young talent in the organization, exposing them to senior leaders in the organization, and giving them some insight and connections to perhaps leaders that they maybe wouldn't get the chance to connect with, talking about strategy, and getting them involved, helping to shape that strategy. So really important that agriculture is attractive to the younger generation as well, because if I look back when I left university and I was at an agricultural focused university, probably 50% of my cohort went straight out the industry. It wasn't particularly attractive at the time, and I think we've maybe been through a bit of a roller coaster of at certain times it's attractive and at certain times it's maybe not so attractive. I think with the use of technology now being deployed in agriculture, it's a super exciting time of what the next 5-10 years could look like for us.
I think sometimes we can get so bogged in the challenges that actually having these conversations about new innovations and technology is so exciting. And I'm someone that's totally new to the hybrid wheat conversation. You've talked about a 15-year journey. We haven't got too much longer time to go, but I would just love to hear, for everyone sitting here listening online, what are the touch points that go into a 15-year journey? I mean, who are the people working behind the scenes? What does that work with? Who are the people involved in this process?
I mean, the list is long, and you can imagine over 15 years how many people have been in Syngenta, left Syngenta, changed roles within Syngenta, or moved to a competitor. So you can have everything from what I call is a complete end-to-end crop team, and that starts with R&D, so the research and development teams. We have our product placement scientists, so really looking at the agronomy and where you would place those. Our commercial teams, obviously, in terms of what's the commercial positioning. Our finance teams, our production and supply teams, how are we going to produce the seed in the right place at the right time of the right quality that growers need. So a whole host of people with laboratory technicians, and then of course the engagement, you touched on the engagement with growers to help develop, also within the industry and our customers, so our big distributors or our cooperatives in France, the milling industry. There's a lot of touch points where you're having to bring everything together to ensure that we're ready to go, and with the right value proposition for the grower to take this on board.
And to build that trust as well in this product moving forward, and having engagements like these, discussing what the realities and what that's looked like working with growers. It's so interesting to hear the developments today. I know we've not opened the floor to questions from you all, but Rob has kindly said he's going to remain behind if anyone would like to ask any follow-up questions. Syngenta's booth is just behind you as well. He would be delighted to take lots of follow-up questions from you afterwards, but just a huge thank you for introducing us to Xterra and some of the groundbreaking things that are likely to come. So France this year, next UK, Germany, Romania, and it's going to continue after that. But thank you so much for sharing, Rob, and thank you for listening, and to our online delegates as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire.
Thank you.